You talking about football?
Yeah, Untitled NFC North. Then let's talk football.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Headed North, an NFC North podcast, and I am your host, Detrone. Now, look, this week we're going to be jumping into a couple of topics. We got the Chicago Bears. We're going to be talking about how valuable that first overall pick is for them. We'll peek in at Ramsey Gate down in Detroit, figure out what's happening there. And then we'll also look around the league and see what might be some good landing spots for Aaron Rodgers. Because fingers crossed he's not here next year. And we don't really have much for the Vikings this week. So if you're a Vikings fan and you don't really care about the other three teams, then might be the time to check out. But look, before we get into those topics, I want to tell you guys about our first sponsor. Nah, I'm just playing, man. We don't have sponsors. But like I mentioned in our first episode, if you're interested in getting your content or your product to the ears of listeners just like you, people who care about football, care about the Midwest, definitely check out our show notes. Hit us up via email and let us know how we can assist with your advertising needs. All right, now into our first topic, the Chicago Bears. How valuable is that first round pick? Well, first, let's establish Justin Fields isn't going anywhere. Or at least I believe Justin Fields not going anywhere. You've got a quality quarterback. He put up over 2,000 yards passing, like 16 touchdowns last year. He rushed for like another 7 or 8 touchdowns. So Justin Fields is going to be the quarterback of the future in Chicago. So with that being said, what do you do with that number 1 overall pick? Most people probably got them taking Jalen Carter. But I think that what Chicago has the ability to do here is turn that 1 pick into multiple picks or an additional pick and a talented player. And then also still get Jalen Carter. I mean, if you look at, let's take a look at who's in that top 5 slots, where Jalen Carter would be taken. You've got the Chicago Bears, the Houston Texans, the Arizona Cardinals, the Colts, and then the Seahawks. So I don't see Houston taking a defensive lineman. They honestly need a quarterback. They should be in the Bryce Young draft right now. But they probably won't take a quarterback that early. And then Arizona, they certainly don't need a quarterback. They could probably use a defensive player, but chances are Arizona's probably going to go get someone to complement Kyler on the offensive side, whether it be a lineman or a star player. And then you got the Indianapolis Colts, and they need a quarterback, like bad. And so I think what would be a really good move for the Chicago Bears is to trade down and potentially trade with someone like the Indianapolis Colts. That's going to put them ahead of the Texans in case the Texans wanted to sneak out a quarterback because, their quarterback situation is, it's uncertain to say the least. And so they may be in the Bryce Young market. So get Indianapolis in that first spot. And then I would go and get Pittman as a part of that trade. If not just Pittman and the 4th overall pick, I would get Pittman, the first overall pick, and whatever pick the Colts have in the 2nd or 3rd round. Then that way you turn that 1 pick into potentially 2 picks and an offensive talent at wide receiver. And you can still go and get Jalen Carter at 4. And if Jalen Carter's gone at 4, you can get Will Anderson Jr. There's someone that Chicago Bears can still go and get on the defensive side of the ball as a star, as a building block for their defense, but leverage that first pick to really get some more value. Now, there are some other potential trading partners out there for the Chicago Bears. I think another one that comes to mind is the Raiders. Now, the Raiders are number 5, 6, 7. The Raiders are 7 on this list, but I think they got Stidham at quarterback, and who knows if he's going to be the future of their organization. So it could be an interesting move if somehow you could finagle, Devontae Adams, get him in Chicago. Chances are that's probably not happening. But if you could get Devontae to go to Chicago and then trade them that 7th pick for that first round overall pick and go and get Bryce Young, unless you think Will Levis or CJ Stroud is going to be the better quarterback, then you go and pick up one of those. I don't know if the Raiders would make that trade because they could potentially still get Will Levis or CJ Stroud at 7 because the Lions aren't taking a quarterback. If Seattle re-signs Geno, they're probably not taking a quarterback, and Arizona's not taking a quarterback. So you got 3 teams ahead of you, and Chicago ain't taking one either. So I don't know if it would be a great trade for the Raiders unless they just really needed Bryce Young. Now, the Atlanta Falcons are an interesting one because behind the Chicago Bears, the Atlanta Falcons probably have the next most available cap space. And so they've got some money to go and get some additional pieces, but maybe they want to add some money into the mix and trade away that 8th overall pick to try to get in first to find the future of their organization. Because right now, Atlanta's been pretty much floundering also. But if I were taking bets, my money's on making some kind of trade with the Indianapolis Colts to get them that star quarterback to go along with their new head coach and potentially net Chicago Bears some real quality talent at wide receiver and an additional draft pick or 2. So if you could imagine a world where Aaron Rodgers does not play for the Green Bay Packers. Now, if you're a Detroit Lions fan like myself, this is probably a world of pure imagination. Like, this is such a perfect scenario because he's been the boogeyman for, I don't know, the last decade or so. If Aaron Rodgers is not in Green Bay, where is he? There's plenty of reports floating around that he could go to the Jets, reuniting with a previous coach. He could go to the Raiders, but I mean, why go to the Raiders when they just got rid of a aging quarterback? I mean, I guess that aging quarterback was not producing like Aaron Rodgers, but why go there? One of the places that I think would be interesting for Aaron Rodgers to land would still be the NFC is the 49ers. Their quarterback situation has not improved. So you got the wonder kid who came through and couldn't finish it out in the very end, Purdy. You've got Trey Lance, who has not shown that he could be the face of that franchise. And I believe there's a quote out there that John Lynch mentioned potentially having to go and look at some veteran quarterbacks in this offseason to potentially bring in preparation for these other 2 needing some time. I don't know about you, but I don't think there's going to be a better veteran quarterback on the market than Aaron Rodgers. Remember, Aaron Rodgers played in California for college. He's familiar with the area. I could see Aaron Rodgers heading to San Francisco as their quarterback for this year. And if he could take them further than what Purdy did, you might be looking at a 2 or 3 year deal for Aaron Rodgers and finishing up his career as a San Francisco 49er. I know if you're a Green Bay fan, that probably breaks your heart, but honestly, it's time to embrace the love. It's time to embrace Jordan Love. He has to be the future of your organization because right now, Green Bay is not in a position to trade up to get one of these top 3 or top 4 quarterbacks in this draft. And because of that, they could go and look in the free agent market for someone like a Derek Carr coming or potentially Jimmy G coming over. But I think if you're going to focus on the growth, especially with that Gen Z wide receiver core and defense, you probably want to bring in some young talent and grow them all together. And that young talent is Jordan Love. So hopefully they're going to stick with Jordan Love and let Aaron Rodgers ride off into the sunset to San Francisco. And then we'll still see them in the North before they head to the Super Bowl. So I think that is what I would do if I were the person trying to ship off Aaron Rodgers. I would be sending him to San Francisco where I don't have to play them often and then focus in on my young talent, including Jordan Love. Now, if you're a Lions fan like I am, then you're probably not super excited about Michael Brockers being released from the team, although you got to understand it. It's cap space, but former captain for the team was a pillar in the defense, but, you know, we can build in the spot that he was in. But one of the places that we need immediate help right now is cornerback. Now, there's a lot of rumors floating around about Ramsey being released by the Rams and where he could land. And there's a ton of places that have been floated as potential options. But of course, being a Lions fan, I would love to have Jalen Ramsey as a D-back on our team. Now, could we afford to pay him what he's going to ask for? Who knows? And is he the number one that he used to be? Maybe. With the Rams team down like they were this year, not a whole lot of opportunities to see him play his best football against some of the better players in the league. But certainly Jalen Ramsey has a ton of upside and would certainly be an upgrade to the defensive backs that we already have on the Detroit Lions. And if you put him with Joseph, I think we're going to start to see some building pieces for the Detroit Lions. But again, will we be willing to pay them? I don't know if the GM and Dan Campbell have really been in the market for a high-priced free agency talent. They've been able to draft so well in these last few drafts that I don't know if going to spend that kind of money on him would be ideal. Hopefully what can happen is we can go and get that cornerback from either Oregon or Illinois at our, I think we got the 16th overall or 17th overall draft pick. They can go and get that cornerback in that spot. And that could really help with some of the young talent in the defense. We certainly aren't taking a cornerback with our number 6 pick. Preferably that's, Will Anderson Jr., someone that you can place on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. But if we could go and get someone like Ramsey and not have to break the bank and still go and get an additional cornerback with that 16th or 17th pick, we could really see some building on that defensive secondary, which is where the Lions are in desperate need. And so that potentially even going to get some linebackers out of free agency. I know Bobby Wagner became available. So could you see Jalen Ramsey and Bobby Wagner both leave the Rams and come to the Lions? That could be something. That could be the making of a defensive core. Now, granted, Bobby Wagner's a little bit older, but certainly one of the better linebackers in the last 7 or 8 years to play the position. So getting him, even if he's headed toward the tail end of his career, would be an upgrade for some of the linebackers that we had in the middle for the Lions, like Anzalone, who was good, but certainly not Bobby Wagner good. But keep your eye out for Ramsey Gate 2.0. If the chatter gets loud enough, we may be able to get him in. But again, it's gonna depend a lot on what he's able to bring in the market, which might be more than what the Lions are willing to pay. Now, as far as the Vikings, I know I said I don't have anything for them this week, but there's one thing that I did want to sneak in there. Could Vikings be ready to move on from Kirk Cousins? Think about it. Kirk Cousins has got you some wins, but he hasn't done much to solidify himself as a top-tier quarterback. Like, if I were going to rank top 10, I don't think Kirk Cousins is making it in for starting quarterbacks. And with that being said, who could you go and get, or who could you trade for that would make the Vikings a true threat to get to the Super Bowl and potentially win it? Now, I know the money probably doesn't make sense, so don't tear me up in the comments about this. But could you see Lamar Jackson and Justin Jefferson on the same team? Ooh, that could be downright ugly. Ooh, that could be ugly. Could you imagine that? Now, with the separation from where Lamar Jackson is from the Ravens, who knows if they're going to land that deal or if they're just going to slap the franchise tag on him. But if they slap the franchise tag on him, you can guarantee that he's not going to stick around because that money's not getting better. They're just trying to hold on to you. But if they could find a way to get Lamar Jackson to Minnesota, you could be looking at Mike Vick 2.0, like 2 times. This could be a really dynamic offense, and then you turn around and improve the defense with Brian Flores, and man, the Vikings could be legit contenders in the North. Not even just the North, like the NFC period. If they got Lamar Jackson, I might make them the favorite to make it to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. But again, that's just me. And it's all speculation. Lamar Jackson's not going to Minnesota. But if he does, you heard it here first. All right, let me get you caught up on some of the players who were released this offseason so far as a way to try to make some cap space going into this draft and upcoming season. So you've got Taylor Lawton from the Tennessee Titans. Bobby Wagner, again, we mentioned him about potential landing spot as the Detroit Lion, but he was released. You've got Robert Woods from Tennessee, also released. So Tennessee, again, trying to clear up some cap space. Michael Brockers, the Detroit Lions, of course. Zach Cunningham, linebacker for Tennessee. So, again, Tennessee is like slashing prices right now. Randy Bullock, he's gone. He was in Tennessee for some time, and now he is without a team. And that's really it. Those are sort of the big names that have been released so far in the offseason, but certainly going to be more to come as people try to clear up some cap room to really put themselves in a position to improve their teams. Before we get out of here, make sure you guys head down to our show notes. Find our email address. If you've got topics that you want to hear us talk about, definitely shoot us an email or contact us on Instagram. We are Headed North Podcast. Or on Twitter, we are Headed North Pod. You can certainly hear this show right on your Spotify, your Apple Podcasts, or any major streaming platforms. And you can also check us out on YouTube. If you're seeing this face, then you're already doing that. Hey, I appreciate you guys stopping in. Make sure when you come back next week, you got your bags packed because we are headed north. I'm Detrone. Peace. You talking about football?
Yeah, Untitled NFC North. Let's talk football.